Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we got a great show for you. Let's first talk about the Democrats' problem with getting women to the polls. I'm going to break down some of the statistics around this issue and how women are one of the key factors to see victory, not in the presidential election, but actually in the midterm. We'll have that conversation. Also, let's talk about Sha'Carri Richardson. She calls double standard when it comes to Olympic athlete Camila Valieva. We'll talk about the discussion. We'll have that conversation about, is it a double standard or is this a whole different scenario? And let's talk about the fact, folks, that you have a number of people who are going through some problems with the changes. I'm asking the question, are you struggling with cultural changes? We'll have that conversation as well, and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. We got a lot to talk about, but I want to kick off today's discussion around the issue of politics, something that we're just keeping our eyes on, because this is an election year, and as we go into this election year, there's a lot of discussion about whether how the Democrats are going to pull through. Republicans have been on what many would say have been on the offense, from everything from rolling back, or preventing voting. Causing voting issues, access to the polls, getting people to come out. There have been a lot of different legislations and new laws that have been enacted across the country to limit how many people go to the polls, that whole conversation. But then, looking at how the Democrats are going to be able to navigate and maneuver through all of these challenges that the Republican Party has posed. And one of the big challenges is getting people out. Now, yesterday we talked about, blacks losing their faith in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the Biden-Harris administration. Black folks are leaving this administration, even after being long-time Democrats. Black folks are saying we're not seeing the progress that we want to see. Now, there's a different problem that's on the table for Democrats, which is the problem of women. Getting women out to the polls, particularly Black women. And this is going to be the first part of our show today, looking at what are some of the big challenges facing Black women right now, and them not connecting with the Democratic Party, them not connecting with the Biden-Harris administration, and just feeling like, we can take our vote somewhere else. Now, we're going to be joined in a moment by our culture crew, Iman Heath, who's an activist and entrepreneur, and Lise Winnie, who is the host of Millennials Anonymous podcast, to have this conversation. And folks, I highly encourage that you join us as well. You can post your comments in our YouTube chat, as Facebook, wherever you're finding, when you're able to share your thoughts, please do, because we want to bring them into the conversation as well, and we want to hear what you have to say. So make sure you post your thoughts on our YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are. If you can chat, if you can post, then do so, and we'll bring you into discussion. All right, let me bring my culture crew members, Iman and Lise. Ladies, welcome back to the show. Always good to talk to you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. And Iman, how are you?
On mute per usual. Hope y'all enjoyed y'all love day.
We did. I hope you enjoyed your love day as well. So let's look at this, Lise. When we have a conversation about women, particularly Black women in the Democratic Party, we often say within the community, and I think it can be all I think it can be agreed upon within the party that Black people, particularly Black women, have been serving as the backbone of the party for many, many years. Of course, we know Black people have been a big part of the success for the presidency of Joe Biden, getting him back into the White House and getting the first black woman vice president into the White House. But now we're seeing the tides are changing. We're seeing something very, very different happening within this relationship. Yesterday, I talked about the fact that you saw a number of black people that are leaving or losing faith, rather, I would say. I'm not going to say they totally left the Democratic Party, but they're losing faith in the Biden Harris administration. Now it comes out that Democrats are going to have a very big, dramatic strategy to get women to the polls, particularly black women. What's your take on this?
I think the Democrats do have a problem with women and just black people in general, or people of color, trying to get them back to the polls. Well, with women being like, what, 54% of women identify as Democrats, they're going to have a problem. But I think most of it is because they haven't been able to deliver on a lot of the things that women, and particularly black women, find important. Black women with the student loan debt crisis, black women go to college more than any other subgroup. That's something they haven't been able to deliver on. And I think that time and time again, black women come out in big numbers and then they are often disappointed. And I think that's why Democrats are going to have a problem getting women to the poll. Now, with that being said, these polls have been wrong. Like yesterday's weather report. Like, it's just, these polls have been all over the place. They're not the most reliable thing. So I wouldn't take too much into account. I think the Democrats, what they have the biggest issue on, especially when it comes to Democrats with African Americans, is the inflation. It's going to be really hard to get people who are already in a bad financial place to re-vote for you when inflation is so high. And I know that it isn't all on them, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the PPP money came through from the Trump administration. There was a pandemic, but it falls down on whoever's in office at the time. And that is Joe Biden and the Biden administration. So I think they will have a problem.
Iman, when we talk about that problem, particularly for black women, as a young black woman, what are some of the big challenges or some of the big issues that you have with how the Democratic Party is moving right now?
Delivering. I want to speak on as far as student loan forgiveness. The conversation was had, young folk rallied behind Biden and his administration when they were pushing they would do student loan debt. But what's happening? Where's the talk about it? Again, where is Kamala? I still even haven't seen her involved in too much changes since they've been in office. So my biggest issue is student loan debt. Where's the forgiveness? Gas is $18 a gallon. My car takes premium gas. I'm crying. My pockets are crying. I need some assistance, please. But it's the student loan forgiveness. It would catapult a lot of us so far, especially financially, as far as with our credit. So not just even as a black woman, young people, and I'm sure those have graduated who still have debt as well. Where is the student loan forgiveness?
So the student loan forgiveness is one of the big things. Of course, Lisa, you talked about the voting issue. The voting rights issue is another one. And even though the Biden administration did deliver on the childhood tax credit, that I think a lot of people, Lisa, have gained from as a result of that $500-600 per month has helped out a lot of families. I know it. I don't need to go too deep in the polls to recognize it, but I do know that it has helped out families a lot. It's still not enough, it seems, to show that this administration or the Democrats have a healthy chance of winning the midterm elections. Is that what I'm hearing so far?
I think you're exactly right. I think the Democrats have a problem that their base is so large that they have to appease so many different subgroups. The Republicans are great at branding. They all get on the same branding point. They all fall in line. They really have to appease one group: white, straight men. That's it. And they're going to win seats. Whereas Democrats need to really start listening exactly to what their base wants. I think a lot of times they listen to the fringes of the Democratic Party and not the actual base of what the Democrats want. When you hear Democrats speak, and women in particular, like, we're suffering as far as financial goes. I mentioned the student loan. They have not been able to kind of get that ball rolling and what they're going to do with that. Yes, he's been able to forgive some of it, but it hasn't really benefited Black women who, like, again, like I said before, have the highest level of student loans. Also, with a lot of the abortion issues, they're having issues with that. And now the voting rights issues, they can't even get the Equal Rights Act amendment passed. Like, they got it through the Congress, but will it really pass through the Senate to add more time to that? So it's a lot of things that they keep failing for Black women, and Black women show up in big numbers. And that's the reason why a lot of the time, look, Joe Biden got in office because of Black women. Barack Obama was in office because of Black women. We show up time and time again, and they don't listen to exactly what Black women want. And I think that's what the Democrats have a problem with. And they're going to have a problems in the midterm if they do not get this in check with what people really want. And it's not the fringes that should dictate what the Democrats go after.
And I think that speaks to why we are seeing this type of data. I want to go to the screen and share with you just some of the latest poll results around this issue. There was a Reuters Ipsos poll that was done. If we could put that on, it showed that Biden's net approval ratings in the negative among all voters, including women, 44% of whom approve of him compared to 48% who disapprove. Then there was a focus group survey in Georgia, Texas, and Michigan conducted by Navigator Research, which is a Democratic aligned polling group, on January 25th, found that Black American support for Biden declined 10 percentage points from 86% to 76% in 2021. Check this out. For Black women between the ages of 18 through 39 surveyed in Texas, 40% say they strongly approve of Biden, and 36% say they somewhat approve of Biden. He's got a real problem. I want to throw another poll out there very quickly, where there was this Morning Consult poll that was released in October, and it found that Biden's approval rating among Black women Democrats was down to 41%, down 30 points since he moved into the White House. That same poll found 42% of Democratic women approved of Biden compared with 50% of Democratic men. Iman, when you look at these numbers, it just goes to show you that something is inherently wrong. I mean, the president is losing Black supporters, women supporters, Black women supporters by the droves, and he's only been in the White House for 1 year.
I'd say the issue is women being at home, not receiving the help they needed. Stimulus checks, where was that, or where was the idea of it to come back? The markets look empty. I think Black women having to be at home with children, they're not receiving the help that they need. Back and forth with the mandates, back and forth whether the children will be in school, will stay virtual. And again, where is the financial backing? Having to stay home, not having the child care support, not having the resources that we need, that we spoke on in previous episodes. That's the issue. I believe that's why he may be losing support as much, because he's not supporting the Black women. Yes, you can parade around, and it sounds good that we're going to be strong and help those minorities who need help. But now that we've gotten to the grit of it, the thick of it, where are you? Where is the saving grace? Where's the extended hand? Where's the olive branch? It's not there. They don't have the results.
And so, because they don't have the results, Iman, we're going to see it. Here's where I'm greatly concerned. This midterm election that will be happening this year will set the tone, I believe, and the precedent for how things move and how things look in 2024. If Black women, or if folks don't come out to vote, or if there is an abstention of voting from vote, an abstinence of vote, right? Then guess what's going to happen? That we might see some people in Congress that we don't want to see. That we might start to get some policies, because of there might be, right now there is a slim majority for the Democrat, but that could certainly change this year because of the congressional elections. And we start to see policies that are not going to be in the interest of women, or Black women in particular. So it's like a catch-22. You want to, and I think this is a face in all of the black community. You want to show that your vote count by not voting, or you may feel like, you know what, I'm going to make a statement by not voting. But then on the flip side is, if you don't vote and the other party gets in, we might see some different policy. And I don't know, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Lise, I don't know how to reconcile those two realities.
I agree. I think this is always something that we have an issue with in the black community, and with whether or not we should vote, because I hear this often, like, it does my vote really count? Like, I want this and that, and this doesn't seem to change. I'm not seeing any change. And so when people don't vote, they don't realize that it doesn't just impact you on the White House level, it impacts you on the local level. And that's what you really see. So when you are seeing things that aren't changing, it's a lot of it comes on the local level. And I think the Democrats have a problem. They have a branding problem. They do not have a message, a clear message of what Democrats actually stand for. So like I said, Republicans, they guns. Okay, great. Go get your guns in your Ford F-250 and we're good. They know what to do. Democrats don't have that. That's why I think the cannabis issue, legalizing cannabis, is what Democrats, getting this inflation down. And by golly, wow, finding out, let's put out a wanted ad, like you said. Let's find Kamala, god darn it. Let's find her. Because we have not,
where are you?
Something, like, let's find her. We had Chucks and Pearls, now we just missing. She's MIA. So
well, you know what? I wouldn't say she MIA. I think Kamala is doing, I mean, look, most vice presidents do behind the scenes work anyway. They are the one, you know, we don't see them. The president is the quote unquote, the spokesperson, the face of the country, or the face of political leadership in the country. So I wasn't, honestly, if you were expecting for the vice president to be as seen or out there more as much as Joe Biden, I think your view of how this thing works is not correct.
I'm not saying that, because I understand how politics works. However, he got elected because of Kamala. Let's just be real. He got the black vote because of Kamala, and she's been very, because we saw Mike Pence way more than we've seen Kamala. Because remember, in the beginning, Kamala had a lot of internal issues inside of her office. Once that happened, we didn't see Kamala very much. And so I think that we need to find, okay, what's going on with that? And maybe have Kamala do a lot more speaking if you want to get black voters, because they're really depending a lot on, let's get this black woman on the Supreme Court that's going to get people out to vote. To be totally honest with you, I think a lot of people aren't educated enough about the Supreme Court and how important it is for that to really move a lot of black voters. I mean, on that way too much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But, you know, and I think that, to get back to the point about, you know, what the vice president is doing, I think that, you know, folks just has to stay informed. Now, look, I will say this, Iman, that it is very, very hard. Not very hard. I will say it's challenging to try to keep up with every piece of political news that comes out, right? It's very challenging. I mean, especially given the fact that we all have our favorite news source, Black Star Network. Excuse me. But the fact remains that it's challenging. So folks will not be fully informed. Folks will not be fully engaged. Folks will not always be in the know when it comes to these things. But I think that it's that this problem that we're seeing with Democrats and women, and black women in particular, it's a what is it, like a, I don't want to say it's a window dressing problem, but it's you know, for us as black people, I think we're all at the point of, like, the show me state. You got to show me before I can believe it. And I think that's part of it. I truly believe that right now the White House and this administration need to step up their communication game on their wins and their losses. Absolutely. I truly believe that. And I think that's part of why black women and black people are leaving this, losing faith in this administration, because we just don't know. So go ahead, Iman, what's your take?
And to add to that, as far as with, again, Kamala, I think our interest, as far as they were campaigning, we felt as though we had one of us in the office. We finally have someone who have our perspective, who will be able to understand where we're coming from and what our needs are. we bet on, you know, her being there to make the difference, or at least speak up for Black women. Because during that campaign, that is what we bought into, the Chucks and the pearls, like Lee said. And to now get to this point, like I've said before, we just don't have the results. How is it going to work? And I think that's the biggest thing, besides communication, transparency. Where is your interest in me? You were interested in my issues during the campaign before you guys got there. You were interested in what we had to hear. You were doing the Dougie and whatnot on stage during the campaign when you would come visit locally. Okay, you have my attention. Again, how can you help? Lack of interest and showing lack of interest within, you know, citizens, Black women, that's the issue. Where's the interest?
Where's the interest? That is going to be the defining question, I think, Iman and Lise, as we move forward in this election year. Who is going to have the interest? Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If we decide to stay away, and again, folks, I'm not saying I have the answer, but I'm just laying out what we're going to be facing. If we decide that during this election cycle we're going to abstain from voting, then we need to be prepared for what may be the consequences. That's the big thing that I get it. Trust and believe, I get it. But if we decide to abstain from voting, or if we say, you know what, I'm going to make a statement, we have to be prepared for whatever the consequences are. That if you don't vote, if I don't vote, if we don't take the time to make our vote a reality, then guess what's going to happen? We're going to get further along or further back in this year, and then come the presidential year of 24. Who knows where the country will be, right? It's like, we don't know.
Right. Everyone will be mad at the Democratic Party and go Republican.
Yeah, I mean, we really are going to have to be honest with ourselves and say, if I don't vote, these are the possible consequences. I'm not ready. I'm not sure if we're ready to have that part of the conversation yet, or if we're not having that part of the conversation enough. But I do know there are going to be some consequences, and we just got to be prepared for any scenario. And having these discussions right here will prepare some folks to think deeply and much more broadly about the situation that we're in. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about, we've been talking about women. Let's talk about this woman here, Sha'Carri Richardson. Sha'Carri says that there's a double standard when it comes to Olympic athlete Camila Valieva, and how that athlete is given like just a slap on the wrist for her drug use, where Sha'Carri was being ostracized and essentially put out. We'll have that. Is that a double standard or just a different scenario? We'll have that conversation. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the second 30 of The Culture right here on Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about what's been going on with runner Sha'Carri Richardson, who put out a tweet yesterday about, just sharing her frustration and seeing that this is a real big problem when it comes to how Black athletes, especially women athletes, are treated by the Olympic Committee. Now, here's the situation, folks. There's a Russian figure skater by the name of Kamila Valieva. She's 15 years old, and they found that she had some sort of medication in her system, some doping. They call it a doping scandal, but she's 15 years old, and she was suspended. But essentially, even though she was suspended because of suspected doping, they still allowed her to compete, and then she would not be eligible to win any medals. Now, this comes from the International Olympic Committee and the World Anti-Doping Agency and the International Skating Union. They all have appealed a decision allowing Valieva to compete in the Court of Arbitration for Sports. And so this Court of Arbitration for Sports allowed her to compete because of her age, making her a quote-unquote protected person by the definition of the World Anti-Doping Agency. It also found that given the absence of clear rules for preliminary suspension of any underage competitor, Valieva could compete while the investigation into the doping allegations continued. Now, Sha'Carri, went on to send out a tweet, and she made it very clear. She said, "Can we get a solid answer on the difference of her situation and mine? My mother died, and I can't run, and was also favored to place top 3. The only difference I see is I'm a Black young lady." I want to bring back my culture crew, Iman, Heath, Leaf, Winnie, on this conversation. So, Lise, do you feel like there's a double standard, or it's just a totally different scenario that Sha'Carri should not even really speak on?
I think there's always some levels of double standard. And speaking of the Olympic committees, like, they tend to be a little bit shady. When you go back and look at their history, like, it's a lot of things where you be like, it's a little off. But I think here it is different. Now, while I think that a lot of white women get the benefit of the doubt, and Black women or Black athletes tend not to get that same benefit of the doubt, I think that there is a difference between the two. I think she is a younger athlete, whereas I think Sha'Carri is 20 something.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I feel like it is totally different because that's based on the parents. Now, the excuses that they gave of how the drug could have got in her system, the tritazine or whatever it is, which is like a heart medication,
Yeah.
but it increases blood flow, so it helps them with their endurance, an athlete with their endurance. That's a little weird. Like they were saying, well, maybe she drank out of the same cup as her grandfather, and that's how it got in her. I'm like, no, we're not, we're not doing that because that's a
Yeah,
bit
she
much.
said that was her grandfather's medication.
Yeah, and then they went on to say like she maybe drank out of the same cup he did, and that's how it got in her system. And I'm like, no, that's not how that got in her system. I think this does have to fall on the parents. She is a minor, so we do need to look at the parents, and the fact that she's not actually eligible to get a medal, I think is, I think that does rectify the situation. And I think if Shikari would have went to the the Olympics when she did, I don't think she would have not wanted to place for the medal. And again, I believe that marijuana or cannabis is medicine and it should be a choice like alcohol or tobacco. However, it is not. And they are looking at it as two different substances totally, completely. So I do think it's a different situation.
But Shikari knew, and in her case, Iman, Shikari knew that marijuana was on the banned list of substances when she entered the Olympics.
And I think that's what makes the difference in this story. The fact that she willingly smoked marijuana. However, what we're not going to do is paint this sympathy and empathy picture of this young girl, I guess, giving her papa his meds every day, and it just so happened that it contaminated her in such a way that it came up during her drug screening. So you telling me that, okay, it may have been through saliva, like Lee said. So are you not washing the dishes properly? Like, make it make sense. It doesn't add up. When Shikari lost her mother, where was the empathy and sympathy for her? Why didn't we paint the picture as her trying to relieve herself of her grief? She lost her mother. But this young lady, to me, it looks as if she's being painted this innocent picture that she was just trying to help her grandfather, and it just so happened to enter our system some kind of way. I won't say I don't believe it. However, more details are needed. Even in the article, it stated that she didn't give a clear story as to what happened. She just simply stated what could have happened. She didn't say I slipped and fell on a needle and it got in me. She simply said how she's associated with the it starts with a Z. I cannot pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. Say it again.
No, I'm listening. Go ahead.
She didn't give a scenario as to what happened. I had a bowl of Cheerios and his pill was in it and I ate it by mistake. It was simply it was a contaminated source and I just happened to get affected, but never told how at all.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the hard part about, first thing, the whole fact that she is a quote unquote protected person, I think needs to be a part of this conversation, Lise, because you're 15 years old and you're in a situation like this, but there are rules. Whereas Shikari she's an adult, right? And so certain things don't apply. But I'm kind of going back and forth within myself to say, okay, if she is, I mean, she definitely, we know that Black women are biased against, or have been discriminated against rather, for many years. So I'm not moved that, but then I'm thinking to myself, but Shikari, it's hard. I'm gonna be honest with you, Lisa. It's hard.
Yeah, the way she phrased it too, because she said her mother passed away. And I get that. My mother also passed away. But at the end of the day, that is still a choice. So that is a choice you made, and you have to live up to that choice that you made with this she's 15. So there's a big, I'm not going to say a gigantic age difference, but there is definitely an age difference between the two. Is it suspicious of how she got it in her system? Yeah, somebody call Inspector Gadget because we got a thing on our hands. Like this is a little off of how you got this in your system. But at the end of the day, it is not the same situation. And I think sometimes when you make things, you conflate things to be the same, especially when it comes to race, you start walking down a very slippery slope where people start to say, see, that's what I'm talking about over there. They make everything about race. So I think if you make everything about that, then people say, well, then is anything about it? So I think you do have to look at the nuances in this particular situation. Is it fair? I wouldn't say that it's 100% fair because you do have people like Michael Phelps and Simone Biles and Katie Ledecky who have gone out of their way to prove that they were not on any type of they weren't doping. So there are other athletes that have had to prove that they weren't on any types of substances, whereas they're allowing her to compete where she is. So I get where people could be outraged, but I don't think this is like, I get it, Sha'Carri, but this not the fight. This not
So
the
this
one.
is so for you. This is a totally different scenario. And Iman, you're saying that this is a different scenario as well.
Correct. I want to just go back to I can't remember her exact name. Black ice skater from a while ago. She did like a backflip while she was ice skating, and they made the move illegal because of the difficulty level. However, she achieved it. So if it was a white woman that did it, would it have been made illegal because of difficulty level? Would have been the same scrutiny because of difficulty level? It's we've always been treated differently. Simone Biles, she was ridiculed because she was called the GOAT because what she did it so effortlessly. Her difficulty level, she exceeded it, and it's like, well, dang, why does black girl keep excelling like this? Why she's able to beat these records and set these records, but others may not have in the same aspect. It's not fair. I'm definitely going to push the racial card. I'm gonna go ahead and draw 4, swap hands. I'm gonna say it's definitely a racial situation because it doesn't make sense.
But here's the other part of the conversation that I think we need to bring in. The fact that there is still this belief that black athletes can operate and do the same thing that white athletes or their white counterparts can do. And we see this in politics. We see this in entertainment. Of course, we see this in sports. And part of me is like, when are we going to get the message? We can't operate the same way. Not because of skill and athleticism, but just simply because there is a double standard when it comes to black people, when it comes to and white people in various spaces. So that's the frustrating part about this for me. It's like, okay, Sha'Carri, I hear you, but once again, you're a young black woman that's in this spotlight. You have to operate differently. And I know it's unrealistic in some cases for us to expect people to quote unquote be perfect. It is unfair.
Completely.
But guess what?
Completely.
That's what it is.
She can over there in Russia, she can hit the blunt if her mother dies. But over here, as a black African American woman, I can't be relieved of my grief. And to piggyback off of our double standard, that's Faraj, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly how it is in any field. When it comes to at work, office jobs, black women and black men have to work be 10 times better, come to work on time way more frequently. We get the same offenses, but it'll never be the same exact consequence. And that's how it is when it comes to anything outside, even outside of athletics. We have to prove that we are 1,000 times better. Our credentials the list has to be even longer. Our hunger to want to fight, and again, we talked about this last episode, to show that we want to fight. It's not fair. We tired. I'm tired.
At least you said you agree,
but I'm hearing some feedback. I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you, but I think that what we do have to understand that sometimes this ain't the fight. This is not it. And I think sometimes this is why we get stuck, because we start picking places where it's not supposed to be. This is not it. Like, this is not the same. Again, I agree there's double standards in everything. Unfortunately, especially, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Black people always have to do 10 times more. But what we're not going to do is say that this is the same situation. Sha'Carri made a choice. And that's another thing I think a lot of times people have a really issue with accountability. You've got to take accountability for that. This girl is a minor. At this point, you have to blame her parents for that, because she is in fact a minor. Now, she won't even get a medal. She will just, at this point, compete. So I guess they're just trying to appease her at this point, which again shows you that she's white. That she's white. So you know that white people are going to get that benefit of the doubt. But in this particular situation, I don't think that this is the fight we want. We don't want this fight, because this is not.
Lise, let me ask you this, Lise. If she was 18, 3 years from now, would it make a difference? Let's say she's in 10th grade now, then she's a senior, graduates 3 years later. Would it make a difference?
At that point, I think it would, because she would be an adult. It would be her decision to make whether or not she took this prescription, because at this point, this is an illegal, this is a banned substance. This is not just a medicine. This is actually a banned substance for athletes. So I think in that particular situation, we would be looking at a closer, you couldn't compare apples to apples at this point. But right now, this is oranges and apples. I'm like, Shakari, you like 23? It's not the same. We can't equate this. It's not the same. Not in this situation. Double standards, yes. This situation, no.
Okay. You know what? I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, you keep bringing up the age thing, and I think that is a part of this whole discussion, Lise, because when the age is, when you look at 23 versus a 15-year-old, it's not a good look. It's just not a good look at all. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more of the conversation with Culture crew members, Iman Heath, Lise Winnie, and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, welcome back to the show, folks. We've been having a very spirited conversation talking about the latest drama between Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva, 15-year-old figure skater, and Sha'Carri Richardson, the Black woman runner representing America. Apparently, Kamila had been proven to use drugs, and as a result of that, she was suspended, but she was still allowed to compete in this year's Winter Olympics. Whereas back in July of 2021, U.S. track star Sha'Carri Richardson was found to have drugs in her system, marijuana to be exact, and she was told that she could not compete, nor could she be eligible for any medals, and she was disqualified from the 100-meter race at the Tokyo Olympics. So now Sha'Carri is coming out and is saying, hey, what about Camila? She failed a doping test. Why is she still allowed to compete? And so it brings up the question about whether this is a double standard or just a different scenario. We've been having this conversation with Culture Crew members Iman Heath, who is an activist and entrepreneur, and Lise Winnie, who is the host of Millenniums Anonymous podcast. So, Lise, one of the big things that you mentioned that I think that we can't just look over is the fact that you have this adult versus this teenager, right? For me, and I'm just saying from an optics point of view, from a guy that has been, that understands the how public relations work and marketing and all of those things, mass communication, it's not good optics. It's just not good optics. And I'm not saying Sha'Carri doesn't have a leg to stand on. I'm just saying that in the court of public opinion, it doesn't look too good for her to speak out. Now, just because she's already been scrutinized before, she was already made mockery of because of her last place or next to last place placing in her last major race. So now she's coming out against this, and it feels like there's something personal that she still is trying to work through. I could be completely wrong, but the optics of this situation, the feel of this situation, it still feels like Sha'Carri Richardson, she has a major chip on her shoulder, and she's not focused on becoming better in her craft of being a runner. Am I wrong in thinking that?
I don't think you're wrong in thinking that. I think she definitely has a chip on her shoulder from it. It's an opportunity of your lifetime as an athlete to be able to go to the Olympics. And I could see why she would be upset by not being able to do that and not being able to compete. But at the end of the day, I think you have to look at it from the sense that she was an adult. She's not 23. I looked it up. She's 21 years old. And the fact that she knew not only would you be tested, she decided to use this substance on her own free will. So you have
to let me ask you
that accountability. It was a choice.
All right, let me ask you this. When the Sha'Carri Richardson, and I think that this, and I'm asking this because it's important that we get a proper context. When Sha'Carri Richardson's situation went down, were you with her, or did you feel like, hey, rules are rules?
I felt for her because she's a black woman, and I felt for her because she looked like us. We're running around in like orange,
everything.
Yeah, she got the orange weave, and I felt for her. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you knew that though. When you signed up for this, you knew you can't sign up for something and then get mad after you have signed up for it. I think but you see the double standard in sports everywhere. When you look at the NFL, like you have 70% of the NFL is black, but they can't coach it. Like you can play.
Let's talk about it.
But you can't coach it. So I get the double standards, but in this particular case, and this is why I'm saying, black people, please, let's save our energy. We got blood pressure is high, rent due. We got stuff to worry about. This ain't it. Like let her vent this out, but this not the fight.
So all right, so Iman, a couple of people have been talking about this in our YouTube chat. I just want to share what folks are saying. McCole said the adults who are in the circle of the 15-year-old figure skater knew what drugs are on the banned substance list. The rules are the rules. McCole, you hey, that's how I feel. Like the rules are the rules. I felt the same way when Sha'Carri, Iman, I felt the same way when Sha'Carri messed up. Like as much as, and my mother passed away, and I understand that the grief and the pain that comes along with that. So I understand it. But I'm with Lise on this. Like at the end of the day, you know the situation. The rules are the rules. What's your take?
Right. The rules are the rules. I definitely agree. Accountability should be taken into account. However, the narrative is my problem. 15-year-old feeding Paul Potter medicine versus someone who is grieving. It's the narrative for me.
But see, wait a minute, hold on. All right, let's be clear about this though, Iman.
Mm-hmm.
Did she? And I mean, this is why again, you put yourself into a situation. You're going to force people to go back to July of 2021 to re-examine your situation, and then start that process all over again. But my question though, Iman, is: did she start smoking weed before her mother died? Or as a result of her mother dying?
We don't really gotta talk about that, Farajii.
No, we do.
It have to be discussed.
No, we do.
We can mind our business about that. That is her prerogative. However, if we dig into it, I'm gonna have to speak the truth about this one. If she was smoking prior, it does make it.
She was
makes
smoking
the
prior.
optics worse. You don't know that, and I don't know that. So I'm not gonna say that's what she did.
All right.
I support my good sister.
All right, I'm not.
I will say, optics wise, it would look worse. It would. Like, this is a habit that you have been participating in, even competing in college. It would make it worse. It would, but we don't know. So we're going to leave that cloud of a question
give her the benefit of the doubt.
There we go. The white people get a benefit of the doubt. Miss Russia Figure is getting the benefit of the doubt. We need some benefits of the doubt.
Oh, I get it. And look, here's my stance on this. Like, every time a situation happens with a black person, I like to really stand on the side of truth and not just on the side of skin color, right? If you're wrong, you're wrong. You're right, you're right. That's what it is, right? I think we'll get a lot further along versus saying, oh, every time a situation happens, black people are absolved from any responsibility. I think that makes us weaker. But in this case, when we look at this situation, it's like, now the 15-year-old, here's where she needs to take ownership of the situation. Is at the end of the day, first, I don't know why you would be taking heart medicine, because the heart medicine it would have different effects on you than it would your grandfather. So I don't know what would be the benefit of her taking it, of heart medicine. If she think, oh, it's going to make me, because 15-year-olds do think like that. Oh, this might make my heart stronger. So when I'm skating, and
she won't get as fatigued. So if
you won't get as fatigued,
more oxygen is going to your organs,
right?
So she won't be as fatigued. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just tell you something. 15 years old, you ain't that slow. You ain't that slow. You know the difference between right and wrong. And I've been in my grandmother's cabinet. I've seen stuff that, I'm not popping that stuff. Even when I was young, I was like, nah, man, I don't know what this is. Nah.
But let's keep it a buck, though. Like, that your parents sometimes will give you stuff and you don't know what it is. My favorite.
Her parents didn't give it to her.
We don't know that, though.
We don't.
So where's the story, Lise? We need it. If Shakara come up with an answer to the question, we need answers. Baby girl, how did this get inside of your body? Not just not
joking like you said. I think she probably drunk that.
I agree. We need answers. But like Chris Rock said, you break your leg and they give you that Robitussin, you don't even question it. Sometimes your parents just be giving you stuff.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think what they did is the best thing. She won't make any money, because I think if you don't get the medal, you don't get any money. So she'll just compete. So therefore, because she's a child and it wasn't necessarily, we don't know if it was her decision to do this, she will still get to be able to compete, but she won't get the financial benefit or the medal, which therefore will impact her parents, who made the decision to probably allow her to take this medicine. And they in Russia. Come on now.
Different culture. It's a different culture. Look, it's a different culture. So we got to keep it a buck on that point. It's a different culture, different energy. And I understand parents sometimes they live vicariously through their children, and sometimes they push their children because they just want to be the ones to say, I gave birth to a champion. But it's a different culture. It still doesn't answer any questions for me. Her explanation doesn't answer any questions for me. But I still feel for Sha'Carri. At the end of the day, I hear what you're saying, sis, but I feel for you. But I think that her absence from the Olympics is only for a small period of time. If I'm not mistaken, she can still compete in the next Summer Olympics.
Yeah, she can. And I agree with you. We do need to find out how this other girl got this in her system. Like, somebody called a Paw Patrol or, Power Rangers or somebody, because we need to figure out how this happened. it's unclear and it's not good. It's not a good look for them. But I do feel, I don't want people to think that I do feel for Sha'Carri, but this ain't the fight. Like, you made a choice, and unfortunately, you got to be accountable for that.
You got to be accountable for that. And like I said, if you're going to be the pot that calls the kettle black, be sure that you're ready for the pushback on that when people revisit your situation and start making new judgment calls and new allegations and start saying that you have you're the last person that should be saying it. I mean, because in this type of social media society, you're going to get some responses from that, especially as a older black woman in this case, beating up, quote unquote, and I'm just using that just beating up on this younger white girl.
We're not gonna say she beat up.
I'm saying, that's part of the optics. That's part of the optics. We can't deny that. If you say if you say Sha'Carri said, "Hey, it's a race thing because I'm a young black lady, it's a race thing," then you got to know the optics as well of how people might say, "Oh, here's this quote unquote ghetto black so and so situation, type of black woman beating up on this 15-year-old young figure skater." You know that's how the narrative is going to be shaped, or has been shaped already. So you just gotta, and again, this is us having the foresight to be prepared for these type of things. We can't just respond without saying, if I respond, what is going to be the blowback on me? Because even us in the black community weren't all riding for Sha'Carri. We were still split. Rules of rules versus the sisters should be able to run because marijuana should be legal. That's how people stood on this whole situation, right? So we will have to see. We will have to see. Sisters, I got to take another quick pause. When we come back, we're going to switch gears because I want to have a different conversation about cultural changes. Do you feel like you are keeping up with these changes? As we have this show called The Culture, we like to discuss all of these things that are happening in society. But do you feel like you are able to keep up? You feel like you're able to keep up with the changes on how people identify themselves? How about the cultural changes on what we think is funny and what's not funny? Do you think you can keep up? We'll have that conversation. So stay with us. It's The Culture, only on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
right, folks, welcome back to the show here, The Culture on the Black Star Network. I'm truly happy that you're able to join us. I want to have a conversation for the second hour of the show. Not too long of a conversation, but I think an important one to discuss cultural changes. Now, there was a writer, an opinion writer, his name is Brian Bloom. And Brian wrote this piece, which I found to be very fascinating, which is about changes. The piece is called Change is a Constant, and I'm Struggling to Keep Up. And one of the things that he spoke about in his piece is that he was working, he's 51 years old, he's a black man, and he realized that he is struggling and challenged by the many cultural changes because he works around a lot of young people. And as a result of him working with young people, he's reminded, as he say, of this idea that things are changing. He also looked at some recent comments from actor Sean Penn about men and women, the role of men and role of women, how men are becoming more feminized, and all of those much bigger conversation that we don't have the time to delve deep into right now. But the point of cultural changes, do you find yourself at a place where, in light of people's preference for how they want to be identified, in light of the fact that what you consider to be funny 20 years ago was no longer funny now, but more offensive, are you finding that you're kind of in this time warp? I want to share with you what Brian wrote, and then we'll go back into the conversation with our cultural crew members, Iman Heath and Lise Winnie. But he said, quote, "Not long ago, Betty White came up in a conversation with a 22-year-old colleague. I was speaking reverently about White when I noticed a blank look on my colleague's face. It was instantly clear to me that she had no idea who Betty White was apart from an elderly actor who recently died. So I told her about the Golden Girls, insisted that she watch it, told her where to find it, and then assured her she would find it hilarious. When I asked her about it a few days later, her face maintained the same blank expression it had before. She said she watched a few episodes and was turned off by the slut shaming and the fat jokes. She found them cruel. She didn't understand how women could claim to be friends with one another and yet criticize each other's physical appearances repeatedly. He said, I wanted to argue with her, but stopped short because of one unbending reality. The culture changes. As it does, the roles of women and men change. Attitudes about what is funny and what is not also change. Then Brian said that he went back and started looking at some old 90s shows and found that the language that was used back then, the jokes that were made on these shows that we all loved and watched, actually could be seen as offensive. Now, he didn't personally take offense to it, but he understands why somebody might take offense to it. The other part that he said in his same piece, he said, these changes in our culture can be a test for people like me. Many older Americans can be quick to say how soft and sensitive younger Americans are, how they can't take a joke, and how we fear for the future in their delicate hands. But there's another way to think about this. Perhaps we older folks are mistaking the younger generation's kindness for weakness. Being inclusive isn't the same as being gullible, and there are plenty of ways to be funny without being mean. I want to jump into this part of the discussion with culture crew members Iman Heath and Lise Winnie. And I think this is a fascinating piece, Iman, when we talk about the changes. He's 51, he's a black man, and he's looking back at things, and he's saying, wait a minute, maybe I don't get it. Maybe I'm not as quote unquote as hip as I think I am. But it does leave us to ask the question, because the culture is always changing. It's changing dramatically and rapidly. Are you struggling to keep up? What's your take on this, Iman?
I want to take that quote that he said, being inclusive isn't the same as being gullible. I don't think the young generation is getting softer, even though I would agree with that probably me 2 years ago. But I'll say they're more inclusive about mental health. I think mental health is what's really driving this change to be, I guess, less insensitive. Like, first thing I thought of was Martin. How Martin used to joke on Pam about her head, about her naps, and joke on Gene about her head being too big. And I would think, well, I would laugh at that, but then think maybe there is someone who is very self-cautious about the size of their head or the texture of their hair, and it may make them feel uncomfortable and I don't know, ultimately harm themselves. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, they reported from the CDC that in 2019, suicide was the second, before COVID, was the second leading cause of death among people between the ages of 10 and 34. Whereas between the ages of 35 and 44, it was the fourth leading one. So I want to say mental health is the big thing that the young generation, including mine, is driving towards. Checking on people's mental health, because it gets heavy out here mentally. And just because you may have tough skin, the other may not. So I think he's taking a good approach on it. I do struggle with this sometimes, as far as not saying certain things. For example, if my phone isn't working, oh, this is gay. Why would you say that? Like, don't, like, that's offensive. And I had to check myself when I used to say things like that. And it definitely is a change. It is something to get adjusted to, but we have to either be a part of it, or like he stated, go against the latter point, which seemed to be pointless.
Right. Lise, what's your take on this? Are you struggling with keeping up with all these changes in our culture?
Well, I think that change is, like the author John Maxwell said, change is inevitable, growth is optional. We have always had
wait a minute, hold on, Lise. You can't drop no.
And I think younger people, because of
that's the one right there.
Hold on, Lise. Hold on.
Again, Lise. Bring it back.
Change is inevitable, growth is optional. And I think that he couldn't have been more true when he made that quote. And I will say this, that I think that younger people, because of just the way their brains are, they're more likely to think about things, and they're more likely to process it and be more adept to change. As you age, you get more in your ways. This is not a new argument. It's a different argument. Back in, the early 90s, they hated rap music. Now the people that were growing up with gangster rap music hate what's going on now. It is not a new argument. It's a different one. So I do struggle with some of the different things that are going on, but you have the option, like I said, to grow. Either you can grow from it or you can be stagnant. And I think that a lot of people find it difficult just because it's uncomfortable. People don't like to be uncomfortable. Now, I do think that we are getting into a place where there's a lot of people that don't understand the difference between I agree with you and that I can disagree. I have the right to not agree with you. I have to respect you, but I don't have to agree with you. And I think that's the issue that we face, I think, in this culture.
Nowadays, having an opinion is a problem. Like, you can't, on Facebook, Lord knows I've been in Facebook jail too many times. We can't just politely disagree with each other. You may see blue, I may see red, and that's okay to have different opinions. It's okay, but like Lee said, we have to learn to be able to. It's okay to disagree on certain topics. We don't always have to get along.
No, but and I think to Lisa's point and to your point, Iman, it's no, we don't have to always get along. But I love the fact that you're saying growth is optional. The growth comes from understanding. The growth comes from, I think, putting yourself in the position, being empathetic enough to put yourself in the position of another human being, right? Whereas back in the day, we didn't give a damn about other people. I mean, even now, we still don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. You know what the 80s and the 90s was about? Me. Okay. Don't let nobody lie to you and talk about we were all community. No, the 80s and the 90s, it was about me. Like, look at me. Look how fly I am. Look at how much money I have. Look at what the things that I got. Look how beautiful and sexy or pretty. And that's the era that I grew up in, 80s and the 90s. And then let's not talk about the 90s. Once it got to the 90s, it started to be like everything was materialism. Everything was about what's on the outside of you, not on what's on the inside. And I think that we're in a very critical moment, not just within our culture, but within our consciousness, where we're starting to see that people are saying, wait a minute, hold up, especially the next generation. Now, this is the generation now. And Iman, you know that, and I know it. This is the same generation that we brought into being, right? Or that our parents or grandparents, brought into being. And then it's like, no, I'm not with all this no more. I'm not with it. Labels, I'm not with that. I don't care. Now, some people, of course, some young people are like materialistic. We know that. But then you come across another group of young people that are not a part of the minority that are like, I don't care what you got. I don't care what you got. Matter of fact, I'm going to wear this and I'm going to just mess up your whole head with the color patterns. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
the mix match.
I'm going to do mix match and that's my style. And guess what? We want to accept it.
Yeah. And it's the new thing now. And I think social media, like you were saying, Farajii, as far as the 80s and 90s, things are becoming materialistic. It screams way more on social media now. And I think that's the part that does it. And now going viral, setting yourself apart from the rest of the pack, wearing those mismatched fits, you'll have houndstooth and polka dots on at the same time. It's different. It's new. Me being an older person, I don't like it. It doesn't make sense. Those colors don't go together. But it's a part of culture. I can either accept it or keep trying to go against the grain, which is pointless, tiring. We don't have to.
Right. And
I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit with you, Farajii. I'm gonna have to disagree with you saying that I think that the 80s and 90s were more self-absorbed or it was more about me. I think it's more now because in the 80s and 90s it was more outward. You did care about what your neighbors thought. You did care about what people were saying. Now it is all about me. Like, I want you to be and say what I want you to do because this hurts my feelings. It doesn't matter how it makes you feel. I don't like that. So it doesn't matter how you feel. I think it's the opposite. Where everything.
I think that so wait a minute. So you might be talking about how we, like back in the day, we were more politically correct versus now people just say whatever the hell they want to say without no filter. No repercussions.
Correct.
Oh no, it's repercussions. It's repercussions.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, weeks in Facebook jail. It's repercussions.
Yeah, I mean, but that's in social media, right? That's in social media,
right?
And I'm talking about as the hashtag in real life. You know what I'm saying? Like the same energy you bring on social media, you ain't gonna go up to this person and just like, I'm gonna pop you in your face. You say that to me. You know, we're not gonna use that same energy. But I do think that there is something that is brewing. There's an authenticity. Now, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I did not see this quite as much, but there is an authenticity that's present now.
Individuality.
The individuality.
People start to express individuality.
There it is. Now, here's my thinking. I'm thinking that we have to get to that new place to get to a greater place of seeing, okay, I'm an individual. This is who I am. But then I think the next step, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree with me on this, Lise. The next step is I'm an individual. This is who I am, and this is the part of the community that I belong to. That we're moving toward that. What's your take?
I think we are moving towards it, but I don't think that is in fact true. I think that you have to fit into a group. It's just different groups. I think we as humans, we want to pretend like we have all this control and I am individualistic and we fit into boxes. They just create more boxes and then we just fit into those boxes. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we're still in a place where we are still following the trends. People just want to follow the trends. Eventually, I think you're right. We are going in that direction. But I don't think we're anywhere near it. Like if we was shooting darts, we'd be on the wall. Like we're not quite there yet, in my opinion.
We're not quite. All right, and here's what Brian said in his piece, and I want to go back to this because I think we've been kind of speaking to the next generation, younger folks, but there is a struggle as older people. He said, quote, turning this around, it is often hard for younger people to understand how getting older is at times deeply disorienting. It often feels as though the earth is shifting constantly under your feet. Things that were once perfectly acceptable can turn harmful. Getting older, I'm learning, can often seem as though much of the world is trying to push you out. You can feel the ground you once knew slipping away.
Like Lee said, it's the comfortability. No one wants to be uncomfortable. Change is very uncomfortable. It's what's familiar is no longer familiar. It looks different. You don't want to be a part of it. But what I would want the older generation to do is to try to be more open minded and accepting of what the new generation has to say. At least listen. I'll say when I worked with the state a few years ago, I was the youngest one in the office, and I mean like 20-year gap difference. And they weren't as accepting of me. I was teaching an unemployment class. They weren't as accepting of me as how I taught the class versus how they would. But my way was still effective. And it's like, hey, let's share notes, let's share ideas. Maybe we come up with something even better if we combine the two. But to just push it off or go against the grain, accept it. It's gonna happen. You have the choice. But I would say go with growth. Because it's only going to continue to change as time goes on.
Well, somebody, and here's the thing about the growth part. You have to realize that you are immature before you can make the decision to grow.
That's step one.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's part of the struggle as well, right? Like we all, like this culture that we're in will force you to look at yourself and say, wait a minute, hold on, am I immature? Or am I truly growing? Like you have to make a decision to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And if that decision isn't made, then guess what? You're going to be swept away in your own anger and bitterness, and you know what I mean, and unable to adapt. You're going to be swept away by all these forces because you won't know how to manage in a world. Now, does that mean you change inherently who you are? No.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that you need to kind of take the moment and say, all right, let me check myself here. Let me just share with you what some people are saying in our chat, and folks, keep your comments going. But I love this one. Janae said, here's a cultural shift. All these beat up cars on the road. I don't even want to drive next to a banged up car because that is indicative of the owner. With hit and runs. Stop it. This is what she said.
I am a crash dummy. I just want to say. That is offensive.
Janae, I love
My feelings are hurt.
Look, Shakira checked in and said, look, I can relate. I am in my 40s and I'm learning to adapt to culture changes. The younger generation is a lot more inclusive than my generation was. Change can be a good thing. That's very, very true. And then Grace checked in and said, peeling off the skin of what makes you acceptable to the masses. See, so now I feel like, and this is part of the changes that I think that were happening. And I said this at the first day that we started this show. The culture is not outside of us. We are the culture. We determine whether something is acceptable or not acceptable. We determine whether something is in style or not in style. We determine whether something is good or bad. But we are the culture.
The cancel culture is vicious. They get rid of everybody.
But here's the thing. Who made that shit up?
Exactly.
The culture.
We are the culture.
I mean, listen to how crazy it is. Listen how crazy. Like, you're going to just cancel a whole human being from expressing themselves or making mistakes. You're going to just cancel a joker. Just like, all right, you no longer exist to us. Like,
We're having to be inclusive.
No, I mean, it's just a fact of who made you God.
I agree, but I think this is where the positivity in having older and younger generations come into play. I think they both need to exist because you have the younger people who are the dreamers. They're the ones that can imagine a world that's different from what we have today. The older generation is like, no, this is where we're at. They're the realists. They keep it in line. They keep it in check. The issue is, I think, is the communication between the two. So we need to be able to have those open dialogues and communicate amongst one another. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. That's where the growth is. The growth is in communicating with the older generations, really passing down that stuff to the younger generations, because without that, all of that will be lost. So I think that we do need that still. Even like when you talk about cancel culture, which I said that's not a thing. You can't cancel a person. They will still exist. But that's why you need the older generations to step up and say, it's okay that they don't agree with you. Because if we all were in our early 20s, late teens, everybody would be canceled. There would be nobody left. Everybody would be nobody left. So I mean, we need each other.
Right.
We need each other.
We balance.
Right. But see, that's what I'm saying. So Lise, you're saying that it takes mature adults to balance out immature young people.
Correct. We need, and I'm not talking about immature adults. We need mature adults that are not going to engage in the conversation. Yes.
I mean, mature adult. I'm talking about sound thinking, critical, emotionally intelligent adults.
Yes, teach them. Like, that's how you learn. Teach them. I know everybody has that person in their life that was older that taught them something. You need that. And I think that's what our community and the culture is lacking, is that no one wants to teach. Everybody want to be the teacher. Everybody can't be the goddamn teacher. Somebody got to sit down and be the student sometimes. And it doesn't matter about age. It's what you know. You can learn something from a young person. You can learn something from an old person. But sit down and be a student sometime. You know what I mean? Just listen.
If we saw that, Iman, and I love the idea of sitting down and talking, but there has to be a respect level. There was a question that was brought up in the New York Times, and I just saw it. I didn't get into the article, but I thought it was an interesting question. They said the question was, should we respect toddlers as human beings?
They are human beings.
Yeah, they are human beings, but even though logically we know that they're human beings, it's like they are going. I think the question speaks to the fact that you have another person who has their own thoughts and feelings and understanding about the world that's around them, right? And we have to respect them for that view.
I agree.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Just to respect them for where they are. Like, they are toddlers, right? My 8-year-old son, he does things sometimes that I'm like, why did you do that? But that's his 8-year-old mind working, because he's still trying to navigate through the place and the space that he's in. So I have to respect the journey enough to be like, I know why you did it, but guess what? Here's the consequences, or guess what? Here's the reward. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we just have to have that level of respect from adults to allow young people to be young, dumb, and have all kinds of fun.
Yeah. And it's even a change. It's a change with that too, as far as parenting. I'm seeing this new thing called soft parenting, where you don't raise your voice at the child, you don't use aggressive manners. Where when I was growing up, let me get a phone call home from school, grab the sand brown belt, I'm getting a beat. Now, right now, I wouldn't have considered it abuse. It was just discipline. I didn't listen. I was hard-headed. I was one of those ones who did what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do, regardless. I'm not like that now. But I look at it as discipline, but now the newer generation would say that's abuse. So again, that balance, teaching the new and the old, hey, rather than scream at the 2-year-old for behaving like a 2-year-old, let's accept their behavior. However, try to correct it in a gentler way. So even that is changing. Parenting is changing as a culture.
Parenting is definitely, you know what? Let's keep it real. I only got like 30 seconds for this, but let's keep it real. Parenting is based upon the culture. We parent based upon the culture that we are involved in, that we live in, right? So, like, I've gotten beatings, you know what I'm saying? But then I've seen scholars and other folks who have done some extensive research, especially Black scholars. You know, I think of like Dr. Stacey Patton. She wrote a book about parenting, and one of the things that she wrote in her book was about, this idea that you have to beat a child for them to understand you. And she kind of made the connection between what we experienced in the transatlantic slave trade to where we are right now. And it's like the culture that, boy, go out to the back and get me a switch.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different culture. Like, would you beat your child knowing that in the course of that action, that child might lose faith in you in making a sound decision? And I'm not saying that your child never needs to have their hand. You're gonna put your hands on the child,
yeah, just a little bit,
but you wouldn't beat them. You pop your child, but would you outright? Because guess what? Some crazy adults are not cool-headed enough to administer that type of pain in a just way.
Very true. Very true.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's not the child's fault. That might be some crazy ass parent's fault who just don't know how to administer discipline.
Correct. And ultimately, it can be damaging to the child psychologically. I agree 100%. It definitely depends on the child. Compared to me and my brother, I'm the one you should get physical with. My brother, say something. My mother, she could say something that might hurt his feelings, but he'll get it together. Me, I didn't care about what you were saying. I didn't care about what you had to say. Right. So it depends on the child. Depends on the child, I'll say.
It would definitely depend on the child.
Yeah,
look, we got to take a quick. Go ahead, Lisa.
But
go ahead, Lisa.
No, we can take the break. I can.
You want to take a break?
No, I'm just saying you can see you go ahead, take the break.
All right. I want to make sure because you sound like you were about to drop some jewels right there.
We can always do when we come back. Always got jewels.
Always got jewels.
Right. We take a quick pause. When we come back, let's switch the conversation a little bit. I'm gonna get Lisa's point in on this topic, but as we come back, let's talk about Kanye West, because again, this speaks to the culture and where he is, and some of the latest actions that Kanye has taken should not just make us use that information for fodder or for gossip. We should really have a deeper discussion about how these actions affect his wife, his family, his children, and most importantly, how they affects the culture and how we see parenting and being a husband and a spouse, all of those things. Huge implications. So we're going to have that discussion when we come right back. So stay with us. It's The Culture, only on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on that.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. I truly appreciate you checking in. Tonight, folks, we've been having a number of dynamic conversations, but this last one about the fact that are you struggling with culture changes is a big one. Now, here's the next topic I want to bring in is going to be about Kanye West. So before we get to Kanye, because he's a whole situation, Lisa, I want to give you an opportunity to share your final thought about that topic of cultural changes.
Yeah, I was just going to, since we were talking about parenting, which kind of can segue into where we're going, but I was just gonna say that you can even see the growth in where we are based on parenting, because like you said, you're now talking to your children to actually hear them. That was something that would never happen. No, we're not saying, if your 8-year-old say, hey, I want to drive the car, don't let the 8-year-old drive the car, but at least listen to why he wants to drive the car. So that's all I was saying, that's how you can really tell that there's definitely been changes and growth. So we're going in a positive direction. So I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to that point real quick, Lisa, I mean, I think that piece around parenting is something that that we should have more conversations about. I'm happy to see Black authors, Black scholars putting out books and other works to speak to the negative impact of the style of parenting that we used to have 20, 30 years ago. And then, like you said, Iman, you have this different style, what they call, what they say, soft parenting.
Soft parenting.
Right, which is a whole different style, but that's rooted in my understanding of that methodology. It's rooted in, understanding, communicating with your child, guiding them to make certain decisions, and still being a firm place for your child to rest upon in challenging moments. So, I think we need to have that. We need to have those conversations with our children in a different way, because I grew up in a household where you feared the dad, you loved the mom. I'm going to say that again. You feared the dad. If you were blessed to have a father figure in the house, whether it's your father, grandfather, your uncle, or even a big brother who often probably served as a father figure or male figure, you were taught to fear the man, love the woman. And one of the big things that I did and I still do as a parent is, like, one, I always tell my son every day, I love you. I kiss him. I'm affectionate with him. I don't have no problem hugging up on my son and letting him lay on me and the whole nine. But then there's the other part of it where you have to, explain when you make certain decisions, why.
Explain. I like that you said that.
And part of the old school parenting tactic was, you do what I say, not as I do.
You better not ask why.
This generation is too smart, man. My son is light years ahead of me in certain things. So I'm like, let me explain it to you like a scientist and an engineer that you are. Let me explain it to you so that way you can understand my rationale and my thinking. It took me years to understand my dad's rationale and thinking on things. And I didn't want that to be the case for my son. So I'm like, I have to explain certain things. I got to explain decisions, because that's really how he's going to determine whether he's going to think like his dad or he's going to think on his own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in those critical moments when dad and mom are not around, I want him to have the voice of, don't do this, son. You may want to consider.
And he'll also model your way of communicating. He'll also model your way of communicating. He'll also model that as well. And now that we speak more on it, I think soft parenting may be a trauma response from how we were raised.
Oh yeah.
Maybe how we felt uncomfortable. In my situation, I didn't feel uncomfortable, but in my situation, the father figure wasn't there, so it was teeter-totter. I might fear my mother when I go home because I got that phone call, but I can love her at the same time. So some of us had that one parent who was on both sides, but I think soft parenting could be a trauma response from what we went through.
No doubt. If you grew up in a household where you got whoopings and it was like, listen, don't speak, and all of those type of things, no doubt. And I think a lot of, especially younger parents, at least, I think a lot of younger parents now, we want to give our children the world, right? You want to give them everything from the Sky Zone to the tablet experience. You want to make sure that their 5-year-old birthday party is just as big as the 16th-year-old birthday party. I mean, you want to go all out. You want to go all out for your children now because you feel like, I was robbed as a child. Therefore, I need to make sure that my children don't feel robbed.
Agreed. I agree with that. And I think that that's something that we are getting into a better place with, making sure that people understand. I also did not have my father in the house. So I did have a grandfather, but I didn't have my father in the house. So I think that the impacts of that, and I had a mother who she wasn't formally diagnosed, but probably had some levels of mental illness, which is probably what Kanye West's children are going through.
Yeah.
To see that play out. So I had an interesting childhood. So I want my children, I want to listen to them and I want to do right by them. And it's not just a child should, be seen and, not heard. Don't enter. Like, I want to talk to you. Let's communicate. Let's find out what your feelings are and how your day actually went. So I think we are getting to a better place with that.
Absolutely. Speaking of Kanye, because I do want to get your ladies' thoughts on the latest. I don't even know what to call this situation, but he and I know people often say, well, why do y'all keep talking about Kanye? Why do we bring Kanye? Kanye is still an influential figure in our culture, right? He's still an influential figure. I had a young lady, a sister on yesterday that said that she literally voted for Kanye for the 2020 election. No lie. I get it. You know what I'm saying? So Kanye, and she's a brilliant artist, a brilliant woman, brilliant creator. So I don't think we can just totally write off the things that Kanye West do. We can totally write off. There are certain celebrities that I think that we have to understand that their influence is bigger than just whatever they got, be bigger than how they became a celebrity. Their influence, Beyonce and Jay-Z, they represent so much more. People are influenced by them on so many different levels, right? Kanye West I feel like is one of those individuals. And lately, he's been really airing his grievances on social media. Like, for example, he criticized his daughter's North TikTok account. He has gone on. Yesterday, he made some wild posts that were since deleted about his love for Kim and her, alleged boyfriend, Pete Davidson. But here's what the psychologists are saying about this, because there's a story about it. And one psychologist, or one person that studies the media, her name is Andrea Boner. She's a clinical psychologist, and she wrote this book called Detox Your Thoughts. And she said the reality is the media can be culpable in truly damaging people's lives. And when the media frames a breakdown as entertainment or a public spectacle, we make it acceptable to talk in this way about any human who is suffering.
Suffering, that's a big word. That's a big word. I don't think that a lot of us put in account that he is suffering emotionally. You lost your wife, you lost your family, in a sense lost, because they're not in the same home anymore, but he's hurting. He's expressing his hurt. Now, granted, I'm not saying the way he's expressing it is healthy. I believe I read an article where he bought the house across the street from Kim Kardashian.
That's
like, I get your efforts, Kanye, but it's giving a little bit crazy, just a little bit. It makes people fearful, but we just have to account he's hurting. He's not expressing in a healthy way, but he's hurting.
Well, if he's hurting, and this is the thing that I truly believe, Lise, that when you're going through a traumatic situation, and there are a couple of things that are very traumatic: loss of life, when there is a divorce. Those are the two most traumatic moments of a person's life if they experience those things, right? You got to know, and I think one of the big parts about being an adult is knowing when you can hold them and when you got to fold them, when you have a problem, or when you don't have a problem. If you can't admit that you don't have a problem, but you're going on social media, you just wilding out on every level, it speaks volumes about how you see yourself and where you are in your own growth.
I agree. I think with the whole Kanye situation, like taking it back a little bit, I don't think Kanye was that influential in the presidential election, more so that people was like, I got him or him. Okay, I'm gonna throw it away. It's a toss up. So I'd rather Kanye, a giraffe, whoever. But I'm just saying, at this point with Kanye's mental health, I think that people need to take mental health more seriously. It's not just Kanye, because I get a little bit weary when I hear psychologists kind of diagnosing him and talking when they have not even. He's not a patient of theirs. So we don't know if he's in a mania state We don't know that. So for us to kind of like put that on Kanye, I think is unfair. But I think that he has such a big platform to be able to showcase that it's okay to have mental illness. Most people have some level of a mental disorder or they go through mental distress. And I think this would be a perfect time to really normalize it. I'm a podcaster. I couldn't tell you how many times I've talked about Kanye West in the Mexican wrestler mask. And I'm like, what is going on with Kanye? Is he okay? Somebody come and go get him. But I will say that we do need to take this, because even with Antonio Brown, he's hanging with, Antonio Brown got upset because people accused him of having mental health issue. And what did he say? He got on camera and said that I'm not crazy and all. I was like, so you offended a bunch of other people because you were offended by them saying you have a mental health issue, instead of making this a platform to say that it is okay if you have a mental health issue and to seek help. But I don't have that. So I feel like this is a perfect time for us as society, if we're saying we don't like labels and we're really growing, for us to take mental health issues seriously and understand what it means to be bipolar. What does that mean? I think a lot of people don't even know.
So let me ask you though, this question, Lise. Should we, in this article, in one article, the writer is saying, hey, this is a spectacle that we should not pay attention to. Should we not pay attention to what's going on to Kanye West? Should we not even have, deeper conversations about not just his mental health state, but the influence that he does make on the conversation around mental health? Should we just ignore him?
I don't know if we necessarily should ignore Kanye. Kanye is a hard person to ignore, because I think the more you ignore him, the bigger the gesture. Look at what's going on now. But I do think that this is a perfect time for us to start talking about mental health in general. Maybe not like every 15 seconds, like, oh, Kanye had another post. Yes, Kanye is going to keep having posts till he's done. So let's not go too far into that and go into the rabbit hole. But let's start talking about what is mental health. If you don't feel well, you need to go speak to somebody. It's okay. Like in the Black community, especially, because there's a struggle between getting help with a therapist in the church as opposed to putting those two together. There's a big
don't talk about the church, Lee.
struggle
Don't
there.
talk about the church, Lee.
Well, no, and I mean, look. I think that you have to have both a spiritual therapy as well as a psychological therapy, right? Because mental health exists in both, mental illness exists in both spaces. Like if you're not rooted in understanding of who the creator is, or you're not rooted in faith, I know, Iman, that will only add to the disruption, to the imbalance that's already present in your thinking.
Very true. Very true. It's like, what is there to look forward to? What is there to, I don't know, have a path to? And I'll say, even in my circle, to piggyback off what Lee said, Black people going to therapy, especially males, from just my experience with who I've been interacting with, is increasing. It's becoming this one of the most attractive things to say. I am currently in therapy. Awesome. To be able to acknowledge that there is something you need help with and actually seek it is awesome. And another issue with Kanye, though, I would hope that men don't think that type of behavior is okay or will get the attention of a woman the way that you want it to.
Come on now.
It's not buying the flowers. Okay, cool. Buy flowers, but popping up at the house. I've read an article saying that they said he was hiding in the bushes. It's given stalker, and just because he's Kanye,
it's domestic abuse.
It's domestic abuse. Just because
it's domestic violence.
It's domestic violence because it's not physical. It's still the same thing.
It's emotional.
You have to respect people's boundaries. If Kim right now doesn't want to communicate in a way or see you physically, besides the children, and Lord knows what that situation is, because he says she's trying to keep them away. Her people saying that's not the case. Who knows what picture he's trying to paint, but it's not okay for any male that is tuned in right now. That behavior is not okay. Just because Kanye West is doing it does not make it okay. And again, if you feel as though you're at that point, go to therapy. It's okay. It's okay to go to therapy. Go talk to somebody.
I'm glad that
And
you
I
brought
think
that
that
up, Iman. Go ahead,
also,
Lisa.
no, but I think that it also brings to the point of when we're talking about mental health, and there are more Black men going to therapy now, which is great. But I think that we also need to be able to distinguish between Kanye's bad behavior and him having a mental health crisis, which we can't do. We don't know. We don't have the capacity to be able to understand, okay, this is Kanye going through mania, stages of mania. No, Kanye's in a depressive state now. Like, we don't know that. So I think that there has to be a place of having this conversation out loud. And no, we shouldn't necessarily be laughing at everything that Kanye West does. And no, this behavior isn't quote unquote normal. But I think you're right. She's right in the sense that we idolize celebrities, certain celebrities. And I think that that's also something we need to look at, because even with Beyonce, I'm in the Beehive. I got a bronze membership. I got demoted. Don't ask me about it, but I do have it. But we tend to idolize people, and that is a problem because Kanye is human and he makes mistakes, and we should be able to call them on the mistakes. And I think that a lot of times we don't empathize with Kim Kardashian because people don't like the Kardashians. So that's another reason why we're not seeing this behavior as problematic, because people don't like the Kardashians. So Kanye West, we do need to, I think, pay attention to what's going on though.
Yeah. And I think that if Kanye West wasn't Ye, and he was just Kanye West, just some regular guy, and Kim was just Kim Kardashian or Kim Collins or whatever, right? We would really look at this situation through the lens of domestic violence, through the lens of a woman possibly being, in fear of losing her life because the nature of things, of the dynamics of how their relationship is, the up and down nature of it. Then we got to look at the fact that you have children involved. I heard that Kanye went to a game and then he was shown on the Jumbotron. They booed him. And then essentially his daughter had to, she was embarrassed. And so she covered her face. And I'm just saying, for the children's sake, in a scenario like this, it becomes all too real because they didn't ask to be a part of this. They were brought into this. And then as a result, people are not being forgiven and saying, oh, that's just North Dad. It's like Kanye West. It's like you're passing on this dysfunction from one generation to the next. And you're seeing it out in full display. And so North has to grow up, and all of his children got to grow up probably constantly defending their dad. If
Kanye hasn't been Kanye since his mom passed away. Yeah, Kanye hasn't been.
Well, and look, check this out. Here's the thing. But has Kanye gone to therapy?
We don't know. I'm gonna say I doubt.
We know everything else about him, but nobody.
Yeah.
If Kanye hasn't gone to therapy, and you can't again, I'm going back to this point of.
Or his medicine, because they said his mom was the only person. His mom was one of the only people that could get him to take his medicine. That's another point that we're not talking about.
We did not know that.
I've heard that allegedly. She was one of the only
So what you mean take medicine in 15 years or something, bro?
No, I'm sure he takes it, but he may not take it as often as he should. And, and this is all alleged. I don't know what he's on or if this is just hearsay. I wasn't there. But allegedly, they're saying that the mom was one of the only people that could get him to do that because he's probably had bipolar. He talks about it quite often. I think he's been diagnosed for.
He's even named the album Bipolar or something like that, I believe, or he mentioned it. Yeah, he talks about it all the time.
So Kim is the wife. She probably doesn't have the same level of take this, or I think she has compassion, but it's different. Right. You're more likely to listen to Mama than
right.
Here's the thing. This is the part about it that I don't think that we can totally forget about. Kanye is a grown ass man.
He's very grown.
You see what I'm saying? They say his wealth is reportedly around $1 billion. I don't care about that. What I'm saying is you're in a state where you can say, I have a problem. I need some help. Iman, you bring up the point of you know, it's so refreshing to hear a black man say, I go to therapy. You know what I mean? I still got some past trauma that I'm working through. I go to therapy. It's so refreshing. What's stopping him? Like, in all of this time, like all of the stuff that this man has done, I always ask the question, like, bro, if you all the places, your friends can't be your only sounding board, right? Your mom is not here. We don't know about your other family members outside of your married family, right? We don't know too much about them. But you do need to go to therapy. You do need to really work some shit out.
It's the lack of trust. He trusted his mother. I'm not gonna say who doesn't trust that mother, but he trusted his mother, had that great relationship with his mother. His wife, he may not have that same trust when it comes to mental illness or mental health. It may be embarrassing for him to admit and say, hey, I take this, or I have to take these meds every 2 days, or take this 1 hour by the hour. It may be something he's embarrassed about. And let's especially think about how Black men growing up, you don't cry, don't show these emotions, you got to be tough, you know, you'll be okay. He may be stuck in that mindset where he has to show this aggression, this dominant aggression. And if he shows, or at least admits that, hey, I need help, it may turn into this they may try to feminize Kanye. They may try to say he's too soft. It could be an image thing. It's a lot of variables. We don't know where he's at, but I'm going to say he's stuck at that overly aggressive male impersonation that's unnecessary.
It is unnecessary, and it's going to be interesting. Like I pointed out, what that one psychologist said, that the media should be just as culpable. I think that since he does these things in public, we need to have public discussions about it. I'm not in the I don't do this media work to try to break people down. I think that we really need to have very in-depth, dived-in conversations about these things, right? Because they do affect people. We can't act like celebrity lives and their trials and tribulations don't influence us in some way, shape, or form, because we're all influenced by this stuff, right?
Correct.
And we're part of this larger culture that promotes that encourages people to be like these folks, or to handle life like these folks, or to see life like these folks. So, I mean, there are many opportunities that we can look at it. I just hope that this brother really gets some help. All of my stance has been on Kanye West for years. This man needs some help. He needs to, parents died. I get that. We've all grieved. Again, my mother had passed away, many others. But you gotta know to say, you know what? I need some help. It's going to be interesting, though, Lise. He got that new documentary on Netflix, Genius, right now. I haven't checked it out. I have to mentally get myself prepared to check it out. But some people, like the brother that shot the documentary, say that he's not too happy about how Netflix edited the piece. Like you may not see the full. You may not see Kanye as he wanted you to see Kanye, but I will check it out. I will definitely check it out.
Yes.
All right. Absolutely. All right, ladies, thank y'all so much for being on the show tonight. Truly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Lise Winnie, host of a Millennials Anonymous podcast, and Iman Heath, who is an activist and entrepreneur. Thank you so much for being a part of the Culture Crew today on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. But I appreciate each and every one of you for checking in and riding with us on today's episode. Man, oh man, so many things that we have talked about. Look, I would love to hear what you have to say. If you enjoyed the conversations that we've had today, shoot me a message. You can, find me at Farajii Muhammad on Instagram, on IG, Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So make sure you shoot me a message to let me know how you feeling about the conversations that we've been having here on the show so far, because I want to make sure that we are talking directly to you, to your interests, to your concerns, and most importantly, talking directly to the culture. So make sure you shoot me a message. Also, make sure you show your support for Black Star Network. Go to blackstarnetwork.com, and you can get all of the latest happenings about what we're doing with this fantastic new network. We need your support, folks. You can check us out at Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. Make sure you submit your donations, and let's keep the Black media institution rolling. All right, because Brother Roland knows that he's been in this work. We've been doing this work, and now it is an opportunity for us to redefine how we talk about our stories and have these conversations. So make sure you support Black Star Network. All right, at the 6 o'clock hour, you tune into Roland Martin Unfiltered. He is checking in from Liberia. He's celebrating the great 200th year celebration of that great country of Liberia. He's been doing fantastic work in reporting from Liberia. Definitely check that out at the 6 o'clock hour Eastern Standard Time. As always, for me, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll have another exciting conversation or set of conversations tomorrow right here on The Culture, only on the Black Star Network. Peace.